Now, as a trading nation, New Zealand generally supports the concept of globalisation, but sometimes it discovers it does not always promote our best interests. Potatoes New Zealand has sounded the alarm over an example of the latter, with the imminent arrival of dumped frozen chips from Europe on our shores, grown with the help of generous subsidies that we don't have here at home. The government might not be able to provide an overnight solution as the industry wants. There will have to be an investigation and proof to the World Trade Organization that there is a risk to the New Zealand industry. It's become very heated, and joining us now to discuss is CEO for Potatoes New Zealand, Chris Claridge. Chris, rules-based international trade has generally benefited New Zealand. Do we actually have the abilities to flex our muscles as a little country at the bottom of the world?
Oh, good evening, Sarah. And the answer is absolutely, particularly when what we have here is the potato industry in Europe is not, in our view, playing by the rules. This is not a level playing field. So what's happened is there's direct subsidisation by the EU of potato growers, and they're paying potato growers in Europe money, around about 50 euros a tonne. And what that means is the processors can buy or be given for free potatoes to turn into frozen fries. And they've created a mountain of frozen fries, some 2.6 million tonnes, and they've got to go somewhere. And as we understand it, they're heading our way.
So, what is the flow-on effect for our New Zealand growers? One, of course, is price, but long-term security of supply.
Yeah, long-term security is the really important thing here, because what happens is that we get a reduction in planting. The processors here could be forced out of business. And what happens is currently around about over 50% of all potatoes grown in New Zealand turned into fries. So if we lose that segment of our productive base, that means we lose scale of economy. Currently, we're a net exporter of potatoes, so we don't need to import them. And if we lose our ability to operate at scale, we then become reliant on imported foodstuffs, and in this case, imported frozen fries, which long-term would be devastating for our industry.
I mean, we certainly learnt that, and we're watching that evolve in the pork industry, Chris. And we actually still believe that we're so safe for food security here in New Zealand, but that's not the case.
Yeah, and this is the big lesson here. And I just want to go back to your very first question: is what can we do about it? So we have domestic legislation that we can enact, and it's been around since 1988. It's the Dumping and Countervailing Duties Act, which was subsequently amended, I think, 2014. Now, what that does is it empowers industries here to seek from the government investigation into potential dumping of discounted or simply a wall or volume of product, and also subsidised imported product. The difficulty we've got is the time frame that takes to happen. It can take up to 6 months for that to occur. So what the government, in a sense, is asking us to do is, well, wait until they arrive here, wait till they get to the port wharf, wait till they cause problems in your industry, then apply to a tariff. And we're saying, well, look, that simply doesn't work. That just doesn't make any sense. We know they're on their way. Other countries are equally concerned. We now hear both the UK and the US are also considering putting in tariffs, and it's just we can move at speed if we need to, and that's what we're seeking from the government is let's move with a little bit more urgency than taking 6 months to consider an application for a tariff.
Is it possible to apply for temporary floating tariffs because of the nature of the global situation?
Absolutely, and there's what they call we've got what they call fair trade safeguard measures, and I'm getting a crash course in international regulations regarding international goods, so please bear with me here. But we've got domestic legislation that we can utilise. The issue we've got is the process is inordinately slow and doesn't move at a speed fast enough to protect the industry. And this is what happened, I think, in the pork industry, was they essentially had to wait until the pork arrived, until it wiped out their local production, then they apply for protection. That makes absolutely no sense. And to give you some context here, Sarah, we've got 2.5 million, 2.6 million tons to be exact, of surplus fries looking for a home. That's 20 times our annual production. So it's not going to take much of that small mountain of frozen fries to get to New Zealand to start causing havoc.
Wow. And that's just that, can I just say, ask about face situation, whereby instead of preventing the crime, you allow someone to smash in your car and apply for damages afterwards. So it's, yes, no, I'm frustrated by this, Chris.
Yeah, Sarah, I share that frustration. And this is what we're saying. And to be fair, what New Zealand's facing is the same as the Australians and the South Africans. And the Australian government said the same thing to their Australian producers. We've just had them on the phone this afternoon having a discussion on how to manage this whole thing. And give you some idea of what's actually happening. We have information about a factory in England being rung up and told they've got by a supplier out of Europe saying, we'll supply you 200,000 metric tons of potatoes free. Now that's what we're up against here, to give you some idea of the real risk to this industry. But I want to signal to all listeners that this is just the start. We can see this happening in other sectors. Now, if we don't move quickly and fast and efficiently to solve the problem, we will be the first. And make no bones about it, there will be more. The ripple of COVID-19 is being felt throughout the world and throughout all sectors of industry.
When will we learn from history, Chris, and stop being so short-minded in this industry? Thank you so much for being so strong on this point and making us all so very aware of our instability and our food security here at home, let alone the trade barriers that we face around the world. That's CEO for Potatoes New Zealand, Chris Claridge, on always a bright mind, not only on that, but on all things thought leading in our industry.
This is Sarah's Country.